Hello and welcome to the 5th edition of the Ryno Sports Talk podcast. Before I begin, I want to talk about my blog this week. I put up the NFL wildcard preview, as that was this week's blog post, so if you want to go check that out, link in the description. And so I guess with that, I'm going to go jump right into this. First thing I want to talk about is the Black Monday. It happened this week. What it usually is right after the season. It's the first Monday, so this year it'd be the 4th. In the NFL season, Black Monday is the first Monday after the season, and that's where all the coaches, or where coaches usually get released at, I guess, is the best way to say that. And we had a bunch of firings this week, so I found a list. I'm just going to go down the line, talk about why they got fired, or why they quit, or why they're not the coach anymore, I guess, and then who I think could be a replacement for him. So we're going to start off with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. These were the last guys to, I guess, announce that their coach was gone. They were the last one to say that they cut their coach. And I think this happened on Wednesday, not entirely on Monday. So I'm still going to count it as Black Monday. So they fired Coach Lovie Smith. He had an 8-24 record over the last 2 years, but he's expected to be replaced by Dirk Koetter, who's the offensive coordinator at the moment for Tampa Bay. They kind of just want to keep him with Jameis Winston, keep the rookie in the same system for second year, just so that they can have the same expected, I guess, the same expected ability, and so he can keep his growth going. So that's who I think is going to replace him at Tampa Bay. Next up is the Giants. They had Tom Coughlin resign as their head coach, and he said it felt like the best decision. It was the best decision for the best interest of the organization, and he's expected to be coaching again, but don't know where exactly or who. And they've interviewed a bunch of people, and I don't really know who they're really looking at for a coach. I know that you can rule out Chip Kelly and Adam Gase, but I think that they're going to go someone maybe in-house, maybe like Tampa Bay, bump their OC up, or find a big-name splash kind of guy. It really depends. I have no idea on them. I haven't heard anything about them recently. And then the Browns are the next up ones. They fired Mike Pettin, and he was 10-22 as the coach, and I think that's 2 years. Yeah, 2 years. And the general manager, Ray Farmer, was also released, and they're kind of just trying to clean house, because Farmer had the thing about texting coaches plays and all that stuff a couple years ago, and he kind of was destined to be gone. I thought Pettit was cut a little bit too early. Give him another year or something. They're interviewing a bunch of old former coaches and defensive coordinators. The one that sticks out to me is Doug Marrone, the old coach of the Bills. I think he might be able to do something with the Browns team, but never really know. They also have a couple coordinators here. They're interested in interviewing offensive coordinator Hugh Jackson from the Bengals. I think that might be a good plan for them. But once again, you never know if he's going to be a good coach. I think if I remember right, he was the one that coached the Raiders, and they kind of were not very good back when he coached them. So I don't know what the Browns would do with him, but I guess. And then the 49ers had cut their coach, Jim Tomsula. I kind of predicted this last week, and it was only his first year. I don't know why they would cut him, but the expected guy that go there is Chip Kelly. Oh, and I saw this here. The former coach Shanahan is expected to interview as well, but I think Shanahan might go to the Giants. That's the guy I was trying to think of when I was talking about the Giants. So keep that in mind. Mike Shanahan to the Giants, that might happen. But Chip Kelly is expected to take the 49ers coach there. He's expected to take that job. I think he's going to do really well with Colin Kaepernick as the quarterback. Him as the coach, he's got the perfect system for them, but I guess we'll see what happens there. Another one's the Eagles, who cut Chip Kelly early. I think it was last Wednesday or Thursday. I talked about that last podcast. And they haven't really... I know that they're talking to Coughlin, but I think that's about the only one that they're really talking to. And then a guy that's name has been thrown around a lot is Terrell Austin. I don't know where he is assistant at, but he might be a big name there for someone to come in and I guess, get. So the next up is the Dolphins, and interestingly enough, I'll get to that here in a second, I guess. Let me get back to my thing. So the Dolphins had fired their coach midseason, and then they gave a interview to Dan Campbell, the interim coach, and he didn't get the job, but they could keep him on as a tight end coach or an assistant head coach, something like that, from what I'm hearing. But before I say who they did hire, they had interest in Mike Smith and a couple other guys like Shanahan and Terrell Austin, who's been named in a bunch of these teams. But the actual coach that they hired was Adam Gase, the former Broncos and now former Bears coordinator. So I'm going to be interested to see what he can do there. He's known for fixing quarterbacks and making his offense quarterback centric. He fixed Jay Cutler last year with throwing like 7 less picks or something like that. And it's going to be really interesting to see what he can do with Tannehill, who's got the skills to be a good quarterback, but just has never had the coaching or the system, I guess. So moving on to the Titans, they're not going to keep Mike Mularkey, the interim coach, but they're also looking at Chip Kelly, who's expected to be a high candidate there. I think that they would give him a lot of money to go there, just because him and Mariota would be good to coach. Would be a good combination there. They have chemistry from being in the same college and all that. So I'd be really interested to see what happened there. And they have the number 1 pick too, so that's gonna be a really high sought after position, I guess. And I think that the general manager also wasn't renewed, which is kind of interesting. So they're looking for both, and they're looking at the Ravens assistant and a couple other guys for that one. But I don't really know who to go with the coach here. I think it's going to have to be someone that knows Mariota or has coached running quarterbacks before. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see what happens. And I guess I'm going to move on to more of the safe side, but not really completely safe, is Jim Caldwell of the Lions. He doesn't have a general manager at the moment, so he's still technically the coach, but he's kind of expected to be fired unless they get someone that likes him a lot as the general manager. So that one's still up in the air, and they still are looking for a GM. So I don't know what they're really thinking or what they're going to do there. They are looking at the Patriots pro scouting director for their GM, which would be really good for them, I think, at least because he's a good coach, or he knows the guys like Belichick and all that, and they always draft well. They always get really good guys on their team and all that stuff. But now we're going to move into the completely safe coaches, and the first one is Sean Payton of the Saints. He still a coach there. He didn't get fired. He didn't get traded or anything. I thought he would personally, but I mean it still could happen. But I don't think that that's going to happen. So we're going to see what happens next year with him, I guess, especially with Drew Brees coming back, and if they can get a good defensive coordinator and buff up the defense a lot, he's really going to be safe and maybe even make a title run next year. And then next up is Chuck Pagano from the Colts. I thought he was going to be fired and replaced with Saban, but it was interestingly they kept Ryan Grigson also, who was a GM and kind of on the fence kind of deal. Like he could have been gone, could have stayed kind of thing. But anyway, Pagano's still there. He actually signed an extension, which is kind of interesting to me. I didn't think him and Grigson would get along. And the most interesting part about this is that they pursued Sean Payton but didn't get him. So I guess that's kind of like, oh, we didn't get Payton, so we're going to keep Pagano. Might as well keep what we got already. He's pretty good. So, and then another one is Mike McCoy of the Chargers. I thought he might have been gone too. I can't remember what I said. I know midweek I thought he was going to be gone, like after I posted the last podcast on that. And he stayed as still the coach of the Chargers, and honestly I think that's a good idea. He lost a lot of pieces, and he really was destined, set up for a bad year with the amount of injuries they had and bad schedule and just a bunch of stuff. But we'll see what he can do next year for the LA Chargers or San Diego Chargers, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. And then the last big name one is Jeff Fisher, and he was expected to be. He's on the hot seat coming into next year, and he was right currently at the around this time the past couple of years, just because he's not really a good coach. He's pretty middle of the pack, 8-8. I thought he was going to be cut just because of the bad offense, and he picked up Nick Foles for like traded Nick Foles for a bunch of big items and got really nothing out of him. So I was kind of expected that he was going to be gone. And then the last three names here, I got Gus Bradley. He signed an extension. He's from the Jaguars. They're not really that good, but they could be good next year. Watch out for that preview coming up here soon. It's going to be a special episode after the Super Bowl. Jason Garrett is expected to be kind of kept, but next year's going to be interesting to see if they keep him or not. He's on the Cowboys. They just finished 4-12, but he kind of had a scapegoat with Romo and Dez being out for so long. And then Rex Ryan of the Bills. They announced that he's going to be back, but he didn't really have a great year either. So guess we're going to see what happens with the Bills and Rex Ryan next year. So, and that's all for the Black Monday preview. And now we're going to jump into college football.